English Grammar, Lesson 19. Topic: Pronunciation patterns of phrasal verbs. Watch and listen. Can you identify 3 phrasal verbs?
Today I drove up to New Hampshire to get my accordion tuned. At Accordion Connection, I ended up doing more repairs than I expected, but my accordion is in good condition now, so I'll drive back happy.
You heard these 3 phrasal verbs: drive up, end up, drive back. Remember, a phrasal verb is a verb plus 1 or more particles. When these parts come together, they create a new definition. Did you understand the meanings of these 3 phrasal verbs? I said I drove up to New Hampshire. My home is in Massachusetts and New Hampshire is in the north. To drive up means to go north by car. I also said I ended up doing more repairs than I expected. So if you end up doing something, you find yourself in an unexpected situation. Finally, I drove back from New Hampshire. I returned. To drive back is to return by car. Note how we can easily create new phrasal verbs if we change our mode of transportation. For example, if I go by plane, I can fly up, fly back. If I go by ship, I can sail up, sail back. Alright, now that we remember what phrasal verbs are, let's recall more about their structure. Phrasal verbs can be either transitive or intransitive. If they're intransitive, they do not take an object. If they're transitive, they do take an object. Transitive phrasal verbs can be either separable or inseparable. If you need a review of the structure of phrasal verbs, please go back to Lesson 18. It's helpful to keep the structure in mind so that you better understand the pronunciation patterns these verbs follow. The main question we need to answer in this lesson is which part or parts of a phrasal verb do we stress? The key word in the term phrasal verb is phrase, so we're going to focus on stressed words within a phrase. Sometimes the verb will receive the stress. Sometimes the particle will receive the stress. And other times, both the verb and the particle will be stressed. I'm going to teach you 3 basic patterns. Let's begin with the first. Watch and listen.
As you can see, I'm home now, so if you'd like, I can show you my accordion. It's not easy to pick an accordion up. Accordions are heavy instruments. I bought this one just a few weeks ago. It's not new. I bought it secondhand, which means it was owned by somebody else, which also means I didn't have to spend too much money. So this is my accordion. I like it, but when I bought it, there were 2 things wrong. 1, it was a little out of tune, and 2, on the back, someone had put tape here. I don't know why. I couldn't figure that out. Why do you need tape on an instrument? So I decided to take the tape off.
Listen closely again. It's not easy to pick an accordion up. I couldn't figure that out. I decided to take the tape off. Which words were stressed? Both the verb and the particle. We have 3 transitive phrasal verbs, and they are separable. If you look at the sentences, an object separates the particle from the verb. So what is the pattern? Stress both the verb and the particle when an object separates them. If there is more than one particle, stress the verb and the first particle. I want to note that while both the verb and the particle are stressed, the particle tends to receive slightly more stress, as in figure that out, take the tape off. Do you hear how the particle is slightly more stressed? Alright, let's move on to the second pattern. Watch and listen.
Once the tape was taken off, I was left with these very ugly tape marks. And unfortunately, these tape marks don't wash off. That's one reason why I decided to buy this pad. Now you can't see the tape marks. More important, the pad makes it very comfortable for me when I play.
Listen closely again. Once the tape was taken off, I was left with these very ugly tape marks. Unfortunately, these tape marks don't wash off. Which words were stressed? Only the particle. In the first sentence, take off is a transitive phrasal verb, but it's being used in the passive voice, so there is no object. In the second sentence, wash off is an intransitive phrasal verb. Again, we have no object. So what's the second pattern? Stress the particle of a phrasal verb when it comes at the end of a sentence or phrase. In other words, before a pause. Let's move on to the third pattern. Watch and listen.
Unlike the piano, the accordion is not something I studied for a long time. I took lessons for about a year when I was a child, and then I didn't pick up the accordion again for many years. So if I decide to play for you now, you may need to turn down the volume.
Listen closely again. I didn't pick up the accordion again for a long time. You may need to turn down the volume. Which words were stressed? Well, in the first sentence, I stressed the particle, up. I didn't pick up the accordion. In the second sentence, I stressed the verb, turn. You may need to turn down the volume. Why is that? Well, let's look. We have two transitive phrasal verbs. What do they have in common? They're both followed by an object. Pick up what? The accordion. Turn down what? The volume. So the third pattern is to stress either the main verb or the particle when it's followed by an object. How do you know what to stress? Let the overall rhythm of the sentence be your guide. Let me read both sentences again, and I'm going to clap so that you can more clearly hear the rhythm. I didn't pick up the accordion again for a long time. Didn't pick up the accordion. Didn't pick up the accordion. It makes sense to stress up. Second sentence, you may need to turn down the volume. You may need to turn down the volume. You may need to turn down the volume. Here, it makes more sense to stress the verb, turn. Let's summarize what we've just learned. Pattern 1. Stress both the verb and the particle when an object separates them. Example, take the tape off, with the particle receiving slightly more stress. Pattern 2. Stress the particle of a phrasal verb when it comes at the end of a sentence or phrase, in other words, before a pause. Example, it doesn't wash off. Pattern 3. Stress either the main verb or the particle when it's followed by an object. Let the rhythm of the sentence guide you. Here's an example using pick up in two different sentences. I can't pick up the accordion. Can you please pick up my accordion? Exercise 1. Read each statement aloud. Decide which stress pattern is appropriate for the phrasal verb. Example, look at the statement. Think, what kind of phrasal verb is this? It's intransitive, so there's no object. This phrasal verb has no object and it falls at the end of a phrase, before a pause. What does that mean? We should stress the particle. The rhythm is, it's easier if I sit down to play. It's easier if I sit down to play. 1. Read the statement. Which parts of the phrasal verb are you going to stress? The rhythm is, I'm not going to ask that you put up with my bad playing for more than one song. A little faster. I'm not going to ask that you put up with my bad playing for more than one song. 2. Read the statement. Which parts of the phrasal verb will you stress? The rhythm is, it's very likely that I'll mess up at least once. A little faster. It's very likely that I'll mess up at least once. It's also possible to shift that last stress to least. It's very likely that I'll mess up at least once. Did you hear that shift? Now look at number 3. Which parts of the phrasal verb will you stress? The rhythm is, I won't start over again. A little faster. I won't start over again. 4. Now this one is tricky in my opinion. Let me explain why. We have an intransitive phrasal verb, which means there's no object and there's no separation. So according to the basic patterns, we should stress the particle. But this phrasal verb doesn't fall at the end of a phrase or the end of a sentence. It doesn't come before a pause. We have this ing form of the verb, keep on playing. So I think we should let the overall rhythm of the sentence be our guide. After all, we're dealing with patterns, not fixed rules that can't be broken. So I think the overall rhythm is telling us to stress the verb, keep, and this ing form of the verb, playing. Let me clap the rhythm. I'll just keep on playing. Keep on playing. I'll just keep on playing. Other intransitive phrasal verbs followed by the ing form of the verb include end up and go on. As in, end up doing more repairs. Go on looking for something better. Okay, let's try our last one, number 5. The rhythm is, hopefully you won't turn off your computer. A little faster. Hopefully you won't turn off your computer. Exercise 2. Watch and listen. Pay attention to the pronunciation of the phrasal verbs. I'm not very strong, so it's easier for my arms and my back if I sit down to play. I won't make you put up with my bad playing for more than one song. And if I mess up, and it's very likely I'll mess up at least once, then I won't start the song over again. I'll just keep on playing, and hopefully you won't turn off your computer. To those of you who know good accordion playing, my apologies. There's more to come on this topic. I'd like to offer you a lesson on compound words formed from phrasal verbs, so check back soon. Additional practice for this lesson is available at EnglishCafe.com. My username is JenniferESL. Follow the direct link listed in the video description.
That's all for now. Thanks for watching and happy studies.